Hello and welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm your host, Morgan. This week, we're going to be continuing our How Does Climate Change Affect Things series and talk about how climate change affects storms, specifically tropical storms and hurricanes. So let's get into this. The first question we need to ask before we really talk about what climate change is doing to tropical storms and hurricanes is what actually causes one of these storm systems to pop up. Well, the first thing you're gonna need is warm enough water temperatures. Remember that these storms happen along coastlines and they start out over the water. Now, the warm enough water temperature is usually gonna be around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And then that's not the only thing you need. You need the correct atmospheric conditions to happen just above that warm water. And these correct conditions are going to be an atmosphere that's going to support the moisture content in the air that's going to create the rain that's going to be dumped by the storm system, and also uniform winds to carry that storm system along. And if you get this warm water, atmospheric conditions that support very high moisture and these uniform winds, you're probably going to get this tropical storm system moving through the rank of tropical depression to tropical storm to hurricane. And now it will be considered a hurricane when those winds reach about 74 miles per hour. So the first question that's usually asked when we're talking about climate change and hurricanes and storm systems is, are storm systems becoming more frequent as the climate changes? So before I really give you the answer here, let's think about what it would be easy to assume the answer is going to be. Now the climate is changing. We're seeing an increase in the overall temperature of the oceans. The air is going to be warmer as well. Warmer air holds more moisture. So it's easy to just assume, well, yeah, as the climate warms, of course, we're seeing an increase in frequency of these storms. Well, that's not really exactly what we're seeing. Again, it's easy and logical to think that, especially when you're given what causes these storms and the conditions necessary for them, but the real world is a little more complicated and a little more confusing than that. And if we look at the data that's been collected since about 1985, there has been an average of about 80 tropical cyclone systems recorded per year. And there was a low of 65 and a high of 90. Again, this is going to be the global scale, and it's important to note that not every tropical cyclone storm system is going to hit landfall. So 80 per year on average, they may or may not hit the land. They may or may not dissipate before they get to the land. But we're not seeing more frequent storms is the point. So what exactly do we expect to see? What are the hypotheses out there at the moment? Well, what most climate scientists seem to be looking at and what seems to be the general idea of what we may conclude as the data continues to be crunched is that the storm intensities are going to be increasing, but the frequency is going to ultimately either remain the same or even decrease as this climate warms. So let's kind of pick that apart a little bit. Is storm intensity increasing then? The short answer to this one is yes. So there has been a measurable increase in the proportion of Category 4 and 5 hurricanes since 1975 at both the regional and global levels. So whether we're looking at all the hurricanes that have happened or just one little region, again, we are seeing a higher proportion of the Category 4 and 5 hurricanes. And the specific proportion we're seeing is about 25 to 30% more per degree Celsius of warming. And interestingly enough, there has been a decrease in the frequency of the Category 1 and 2 hurricanes, which makes sense. We're seeing these very intense hurricanes pick up, but the much less intense hurricanes, their frequency is going down. So again, overall, we're not necessarily seeing more storms, but when you look at the proportions of how intense they are, there's a higher proportion of the more intense storms being recorded as the climate is changing. And another important thing we need to think about when we're talking about this storm intensity is a term, rapid intensification. Now, this term may have been heard a lot when the news was talking about the hurricanes that happened in 2017 and 2018. I have not looked into those hurricanes specifically because I just wasn't paying attention at the time when those hurricanes were in the news. But my sources down below do have them listed out if you want to look more into them specifically. The point there is, in those hurricanes, we heard the term rapid intensification a lot. And what this term means is there's an increase of wind speed of 35 miles per hour or more in a 24-hour period. And from a paper that was published in 2016-ish, I believe, that is linked in one of the articles I have linked down below, there was found to be from the year 1986 to 2015, the intensification increased about 4.4 miles per hour per decade for these hurricanes, for these rapid intensification events, which is something to note. Now, the storm intensity, the rapid intensification, it's not clear whether that can be entirely attributed to the anthropogenic or human-caused climate change, which we'll notice a lot of this storm data and storm studying. A lot of the studies are inconclusive, but we can't rule out anthropogenic climate change as one of the causes. Generally, when we're talking about these storm events, there's a lot to talk about, and we're still kind of trying to figure them out for the most part, especially with these trends that we're seeing in the present day. So we talked about the intensity and the frequency of these storms, but what about the rain that's being produced by the hurricanes, by the tropical storms? What's going on there? Well, warmer air can hold more moisture. And what we're seeing as the climate changes and we're getting these warmer temperatures along with these warmer waters, the air is holding more moisture, which means these hurricanes are dumping more rain when they do hit landfall. So there is more rain being produced. We are seeing more floods as a result as well. And another kind of important thing that we need to look at, other than just the intensity in the rain, is what's going on with the forward speed of the hurricanes. So how fast are they moving? Is climate change affecting that? Do we know? Can we tell? So all the studies are inconclusive. We can't necessarily tell if climate change is affecting this forward speed for sure, but we are seeing a 10% reduction in the forward speed of hurricanes globally. So basically what this means is hurricanes are moving slower once they do hit land. So they're kind of hanging around in one area more. And when you're talking about these stalled and slowed storms, they're going to dump more rain in a more concentrated area. You're going to see more effects in a smaller area than a storm system that's going to move rapidly and dissipate over a large area. But again, I do note that the particular cause of this slowing trend is not conclusive. However, again, we cannot rule out the changing climate as one of the big factors. It's just that more study is needed in this area. So inconclusive does not mean that climate change is not a factor. It just means we need to look at it more and figure out what the heck is going on, because it's hard to study storms, which is why I picked biology and not studying storms and things. But anyway, to kind of wrap things up, what should we expect in the future if the climate continues to warm, if nothing is done, if there's no shift to green energy and things just kind of keep going? Well, based on the data we have, we can kind of expect to continue to see an increase in the intensity of these storm systems, an increase in this coastal rainfall, an increase in flooding, increases in the property damage and loss of coastal property entirely, and also increased damage and loss of these coastal ecosystems. So if this problem is ignored and lifestyles do not shift, when we're talking about these intense storm systems, we're overall talking about an increase in overall damages, both on the human side with property damage and the ecological side with these ecosystems being damaged. So storm systems, the kind of science there is still working on teasing apart what's going on and what exactly is causing this, but it is highly likely that this anthropogenic climate change is contributing to what we are seeing going on with these storm systems. It is already accepted that what's going on with the hurricanes is an effect of climate change. And again, like I mentioned last week in the wildfire video, some of the things that we can do to mitigate this are shifting from the use of these fossil fuels onto the cleaner green energy, like the solar, wind, hydro, and thermal energies. So I don't have all the answers here, but this is another thing that needs to be really taken into account. So again, I've used the same textbook that I showed you last week as one of my main sources, and then I have a couple other articles linked down below. I highly recommend the Yale article, because that really broke everything down into very easy to digest chunks. So storm systems, they're going to be an issue. We might not necessarily see more of them, but we'll see more intense systems. And that's about what I have for you this week. Remember, climate change is real. Shifting to clean energy should not be a scary thing for people. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, afternoon, evening, night, what have you. I will see you all in the next one. Thank you again for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell if you would like to see more. And if you'd like to follow me on any of my other social medias, the links are down in the description below. Don't forget to check out thereptilegoth.com for all of my articles and blog posts. If you found any value in this video and you would like to help support the channel, please check out my Patreon page. That link is also in the description down below. And a special thanks goes out to my Diamond Dragon patron, Diane B. What you're doing is really helping me fund a dream here. I will see you guys all in the next one.